When hope is gone, undo this lock and send me forth on a moonlit walk. Release restraint level 0. Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
Hi guys, this is the Void of the Ravenclaw. Welcome back to another fan fiction story. If you like this type of content, smash the like button and subscribe for future updates that I do post on my community tab frequently. Now, let's continue where we last left off in this story. Izuku found an old laboratory that was once used by the League of Villains. In his original timeline, he was relieved that it was here in this timeline. It's a forgotten laboratory that they abandoned a long time ago, so it's the perfect location for him. It's in the wilderness, a couple of miles away from the city limits. It's not close enough for a random civilian to stumble upon it, but not too far to make the travel between back and forth from the city to be highly difficult. And with his ability to travel through technology, that clearly won't be an issue. Izuku decided to set up shop at the abandoned laboratory. He found whatever money was left in the laboratory and made a trip to the city for supplies. When he decided to trade information about heroes' quirks and their weaknesses, he has them memorize every journal he's ever made on the subject that he ever created. Memorize. Comes in handy when you have a photographic memory. It was quite easy for him to set it up, considering he is a former member of the League of Villains. Given from a different timeline, he knows who he needs to talk to sell information. When it comes to the criminal underworld, he's well versed. And that's where he gets a name for himself. When he gets bigger, a bigger reputation, he'll reveal himself in his grand debut. He's just not certain if he wants to continue playing as the villain or something else entirely. But for now, he'll stay low and sell the information and train his abilities. Izuku did just that as the years has progressed, quite quietly for the young villain, I guess, as he kept his presence unknown for a long period of time. Izuku is about 17 years old, spending all his time between selling information, training, and outside of the average supply run he has to do in the city. Izuku decided to go into the city. He turned himself into visible computer data and traveled through the power system as he shot out of a street light, revealing it to be Izuku. Izuku made his way to an underground club where large groups of villains usually gather to spread useful information. Izuku approached the main entrance to the underground club. The two security guards in front of the main door just allowed him entry. Deku is quite a regular, at this establishment, so he's well known here. Izuku walked over and sat on one of the tables, given a good view of the arena, as he ordered a drink and watched the fight that's currently progressing. Izuku overheard some interesting news. Apparently, Tony Stark is on his way to Japan to make some sort of deal with the Hero Public Safety Committee. Commission, my bad. And All Might will be attending the ceremony as well. Izuku paid his tab and left to prepare to kill Tony Stark. If he's anything like the Tony Stark from his timeline, the guy is better off dead. He's too dangerous. He's a danger to himself and everyone else around him. Deku isn't intentionally seeking out Tony Stark's death, but such an opportunity that presents itself to him. You can't blame the guy for taking advantage of the situation. You've seen what happens when you have a unleashed Tony Stark onto the world. It never ends well. So he's doing the world a favor by eliminating a dangerous element in the form of Tony Stark. Don't get across, he's not doing this from outside of rightness or righteousness. Tony Stark would just make his plans difficult if he ever comes to blows with the Avengers. He's just removing a chaotic element. Izuku decided to scope out the location of the ceremony where it's taking place. When he got there, he could see the stages currently being built, almost finished. Once he got a feel for the area, he went to find a good sniping spot. It didn't take Izuku long to find one, a perfect perch. Izuku waited patiently for the next few days. The day finally arrived. As the ceremony is about to take place, Deku created a green energy rifle that was created with pure data, using his reality warping powers. His abilities, he has a armory at his fingertips. It looks like a energy gun that you would find in a energy rifle that you would find in a virtual reality game. Izuku moved the bed closer to the window to give him a more comfortable spot when he has to lay down and take aim. As he proceeded to lay down and get his body in the correct position to fire off a rifle, as a digital icon appeared over his eye, giving him the ability to zoom in like it's a digital scope. As he proceeded to take aim, the target's not on the stage just yet, but the show is about to begin, so he won't have to wait long. Suddenly, Tony Stark came flying in, hovering down onto the stage where All Might is waiting. After a brief speech, the two heroes shake each other's hands, initiating All Might in the Avengers. Izuku took aim. As the sight was set on All Might, then it shifted to the right, making Tony Stark in his sights. As his weapon charged, as a beam shoot out of the window with incredible speed, hitting his mark. If it wasn't for Tony Stark's improvements to his new suit that he's currently in, that he's currently wearing, if that attack hit one of his older models, he would have been dead on that spot. Sniper, everyone get down. Tony immediately did a damage check on his suit. Jarvis, what's the status on the damage? Damage is minimum, sir, but it would be wise of you to not take similar shots. I estimated from the power outage from the blast, if a secondary one hit you in a rapid succession, your suit will be immediately compromised. Good to know. This is my first time in Japan, and I already have someone out trying to kill me. My life is never dull. As Tony took flight, as he had to dodge out of the way of several beams of energy being shot at him. For a sniper, he's being very persistent. Do we have a visual on the shooter? Jarvis? Negative, sir, but it's coming from that building in the distance. 3 miles. Warning, sir. I would advise you to take evasive actions. You have incoming. Yeah, I see it. Iron Man had to maneuver his body while flying to dodge all the beams of energy that's being shot at him. And by the looks of it, it's actually following him. After shot, Iron Man managed to barely dodge each beam just by mere inches, or meaner inches, well, meaner, centimeters, basically. I'm having a hard time pronouncing words today, apparently. Anyways, let's continue on. He hasn't been able to hit him since his first initial attack failed. Iron Man was about to fly through the window of the building when there were several data grenades was thrown at him as the grenades immediately exploded, forcing Tony Stark as he got hit as he was thrown into a nearby water tower. That was on top of one of the buildings. Izuku hopped out of the window and began walking on the air as square platforms appeared underneath his feet. I might have hit my head harder than I realized. Is that kid walking on air? Apparently so, sir. Proceed with caution. This blows, as Tony Stark got up to his feet and began to hover in the air, as he stopped right in front of the sniper. That's some fancy tech you got there, Iron Man. You must have upgraded. Or that shot you got hit and got shot in the head. Well, that shot you got hit in the head would have killed you otherwise. Comes with the territory in my line of work. So may I ask why you're trying to kill me? Not saying you're doing a bang-up job. People try to kill me a lot. 2 green gun data constructs appeared in both of his hands as he aimed his guns at Tony Stark. Nothing personal. You're just too dangerous to be left alive, as he immediately opened fire onto Iron Man, forcing Iron Man to cross his arms together to try to block some of the attacks, some of the beams coming from the guns. Deku tossed his digital guns in the air and extended both his palms outwards towards Iron Man, as huge blasts of data beams shot out of the palm of his hands, hitting Tony Stark dead on. With his guns fell down close to him, he caught him in the middle of the air and began to rapid shot Iron Man repeatedly, hitting his Iron Man suit. Tony is in a bit of trouble. There are several warning signs that showed up on his head module, or the monitors in his helmet. As Jarvis begins to say, warning Tony that any more powerful attacks will compromise his suit. Deku had to halt his attack by a charging All Might as he dodged one of his smashes and slid backwards on one of his floating grain platform underneath his feet. It seems like I'm a bit out of time. You got to live for now, Iron Man, but the next time we meet, I will kill you. And you, if you get in my way, your fate will be the same as his. Just keep that in mind, number one hero. Well, if you're gonna kill me one day, you can at least get the name of the person who's at least trying to kill me. Deku immediately turned his head to the side to look at Tony. I go by Deku. Then he immediately turned himself into pure data and shot towards a nearby street lamp, escaping his failed assassination attempt. It didn't take long for the population of Japan to get word of a villain attack that transpired during the ceremony, as a fight broke out with one of the heroes from America, Iron Man. It spread like wildfire. Not even 24 hours, news of a new villain named Deku was becoming well known. He hasn't really proclaimed himself a villain, but that's what everyone's been calling him. So he's just going with it. Might not have fought All Might, but he did escape All Might's wrath. Nevertheless, any villain that could walk away from a fight from the number one hero gets notice. Izuku returned back to his secret laboratory. It's a little too hot for him to be traveling above ground or in the streets of the city. He needs to wait till the heat dies down. But there's plenty of projects to keep him busy until the heat finally dies down, so he can return back to the city. Deku turned on the television to the local news station. They're still talking about his encounter with Iron Man and the number one hero. They even dubbed it a mutant attack. He's not surprised they're trying to label it as such. I'm shocked that they're labeling it as a mutant attack. Mutants are not really well known. They're known, but they're very disliked, even in Japan. The hatred and persecution of mutants never change, no matter what country you're in. The outright hatred of mutants never change, no matter what timeline you're in. He might have had his debut, but he'll be on he might have had his debut, but he'll be on the Avengers radar, most likely the X-Men as well. In his timeline, Tony had a good relationship with Xavier. He highly doubt that has changed in this timeline. Izuki immediately began to get to work to make a device that can prevent psychic attempts to enter his mind. He knows the full capabilities of Charles, being a very powerful psychic. After weeks of experiment, the final project was finally done. It's a very small device that he puts on the side of his temple that will prevent anyone trying to enter his mind or read his thoughts, basically blocking them out and giving them a slight headache for the very attempt. The device is a small round that can't be located easily once it's placed onto your skin. Once the device is placed on top of your skin, it blends in with your skin tone It's the size of a microchip. Very, very small microchip that can't be seen by a normal eyes. It's been a couple weeks as Deku made his return back to the city, wearing a hoodie, just trying to lay low for now. Izuku noticed a very familiar face, alongside with a green hair and green eye, well, one green eye, one red eye girl, walking alongside this timeline version of himself. Izuku wasn't intentionally trying to find his double, but now that they have crossed paths, he'll spy on them for a little bit, just out of curiosity. What this version of him is like. He shadowed the two Midoriyas for weeks, and what he saw enraged him. His doppelganger is clearly weak and very naive. How the world really works. Though sulking because he don't have powers, he should be... I misphrase that. Instead of stalking, I totally messed it up. I read it wrong because I thought the word was completely different. But anyways, let's continue forward. Instead of stalking because you don't have power, he should be finding other ways that can be used. Unlike the pathetic version of himself in his timeline. The other Midoriya is very promising. She has a very powerful telekinesis quirk with a bit of fire mixed in. He's guessing the one singular red eye has something to do with having some sort of fire ability. She is quite impressive. And she has the right mindset that she probably would make it as a hero. He has no delusions of being one himself, but if there were ever going to be a true hero, those two would fit the bill quite nicely. Despite how weak his doppelganger is, improvements can be made if he just simply trains seriously. Izuku is formulating a plan, most likely is going to be a cruel to his doppelganger, but he needs to see the reality of real life. He found a goal. It is either to forcefully make his doppelganger see the truth, or he will remove him by killing him. He won't have a weak version of himself. That's something he will not tolerate. But his anger did recede once he saw their mother, Inka, to greet her children when they were walking home from school one day. Deku turned himself into data and shot through the nearest access to the city power grid and disappear. As time progressed, as Deku kept a close eye on all three Midoriyas, he knows this Inka is not his mother, but he can't help but to make sure she's safe. This timeline of his mother is exactly the same, caring and loving towards her children. He couldn't help but want to protect the woman. Deku even noticed his interactions with a blonde man that looks like a skeleton that actually turned out to be All Might himself. He kept a watchful eye, but kept his distance as he watches his doppelganger prepare himself to take the entrance exams at UA. Izuku did notice the presence of American heroes in Japan. Their number has only been increasing over the weeks. He saw a few members of the X-Men, most likely searching for him, no doubt, for himself, no doubt. But besides keeping an eye on his doppelganger, he started to get a name for himself as a villain killer. Killing villains just felt right to him, as the public started calling him Deku, the villain killer. That's the complete opposite of the hero killer Stain. Deku watch Izuku finally. Deku separate his time from killing villains and watching Deku, or Izuku. Deku watch Izuku finally complete All Might's training, and having 2 months to spare, Izuku decided to leave his doppelganger to his own devices and go on hunting. Deku shot out a nearby streetlight in a part of the empty city. Only 2 blocks away from the villain's hideout, there are a bunch of fire-based Quark low-tier villain group. No one important. Flies, ants, really. But they're villains, and he's just following the role that the people gave him. So he's just been rolling with it, being the villain killer. Deku stomped his feet on the ground, activating Overlord, manipulating the reality around him, as all the villains found themselves in a green virtual city. As there's a green dome over the virtual city, encasing them in that area so they won't be able to escape. People can walk in, but they can't get out the same way. It's a one-way trip. Surprised they're in a new area, the villains just notice their quirks are not working. Greetings, new players, as they look up to see Deku walking in the air as platforms appeared under his feet. Welcome to Overlord. The villains notice him. Deku, the villain killer. Deku noticed several of the members of their little group, totally terrified, and some were too cocky to know for their own good. Shall we play a little game, boys? More outspoken members yelled out, I'm not playing any of your games, villain killer Deku. You really don't have a choice. You play, or I will outright kill you. Right now, either way, I win. Now, before I was rudely interrupted, the rules to this game is very simple. While you're an Overlord, you won't be able to activate your quirks. In here, I have complete control. Shall we get to the rules, shall we? So we can move things along. Rules are simple. You just have to locate and get to the safe zone before the timer runs out. As you see the clock tower behind me, that's how much time you have left. The time is ticking. The moment Overlord was activated, the time was already counting down. But don't think this would be simple. I'll be releasing virtual reality versions of a very interesting predator. And they will hunt you down. It's your job, survive, get to the safe zone before the time runs out. Good luck, boys. With one snap of his fingers, several constructs of velociraptors come into existence all over the virtual city. And before I forget, if you don't get to the safe zone before the timer goes out, the tower behind me will release a charge of energy that will vaporize anyone in my domain. Good luck. You sure hell is going to need it. Deku watched the villains fight among themselves, not even attempting to work together, as the virtual velociraptors easily surround them on all sides, as they eventually they notice their presence, but it was already too late. They all charge the at the villains all at once as blood begins to splatter all over the floor of the green street. Deku snapped his fingers as Overlord deactivated, reverting the area back to his original state, as you can see dead bodies in the middle of the street, like they were mauled by some sort of animal. Body parts were scattered all about. As Deku proceeds to walk away, actually went pretty well. I'm getting good using Overlord. They would have lasted longer if they actually worked together, but they're villains. Villains are not known for their teamwork. Deku suddenly was engulfed in a searchlight as he looked up to see some sort of transport vehicle with the emblem of S.H.I.E.L.D. Crap. It had to be S.H.I.E.L.D. I wasn't expecting them to confront me in Japan, of all places. As a man jump out of the flying vehicle and land on the street level, revealing it to be Logan, aka Wolverine. Deku raised an eyebrow. He knows who this is. He's actually never met Logan, but he knows what he looks like. And the fact that he's traveling with S.H.I.E.L.D. agents is not too surprising. In his timeline, Logan did work with S.H.I.E.L.D. a while back ago in his timeline. You have caused enough trouble. I'm going to have to ask you to surrender, bub. Me surrender? Why would I do such a thing? I have no intention of surrendering. Where's the fun in that? But your arrival is very fortunate. And with your abilities, Wolverine, you'll be the perfect test subject. First, allow me to deal with the flies in the sky. With one snap of his fingers, virtual tanks appeared on several rooftops on the buildings. They immediately opened fire, blasting and knocking all of the S.H.I.E.L.D. aircrafts out of the sky as they make a crash landing, as all the tanks shatter into data shards after they were done, destroying all the aircrafts. Explosions can be seen from the crash sites, scattered all about. Just come quietly, surrender, and we'll go easy on you. Go easy on this. Deku immediately opened fire by his data beams that he shot out of the palm of his hands at Logan. Deku used the initial attack to get some distance as virtual wings appeared on his back as he leaped backwards to get some distance. When the dust cleared, you could see a regenerating Logan from the attack. Deku immediately shot out the feathers out of the wings constructs at Logan. Logan popped his claws and started to reflect the flying feathers of death, as the wings on Deku's back shatter into data shards. Those shards immediately shot towards Logan, as Logan begins to reflect them with his claws. You have no way out, kid. Where you're mistaken, Deku turned his body to pure data and made it escape. He clearly noticed several heroes arrived on the scene, so best for him to leave. Deku reappeared in one of his safe houses, with Logan on his tail. Last thing he needs is to leave him directly towards his secret laboratory. Deku needs to take precautions. He might be confident in his skills, but fighting against Logan, of all people, would be ill-advised. No matter what version of Logan you fight, it's never a good thing to fight against him. unless you have means to negate his regeneration. He's a very difficult, difficult person to fight. And continuing the fight with Logan, with more and more heroes showing up, would be ill-advised on his part. He doesn't want to get himself captured or get himself killed. He knows when to retreat and when to fight. In that situation, retreating was his best course of action. Izuku closed the curtains to all the windows in the safe house. Izuku went to one of the bedrooms where the entrance to the bomb shelter is located, under a rug. He immediately opened the hatch and began to climb down the stairs to the bomb shelter to reveal a small living area with a living room, kitchen, bathroom, and a bedroom. Izuku decided to get some sleep. If Wolverine finds his location, the alarm system should alert him. Izuku decided the next day he needs to work on his lack of physical strength. That's one category he needs to fix. He's nowhere near weak when it comes to physical strength, but he doesn't have any sort of super strength. Luckily for him, he knows the process of turning someone into a Nomu. He could recreate it, but he's not going to do it the exact way that the crazy doctor does it. He could saw plenty of improvements that could be made to the formula, and he's planning to do so immediately. He needs more physical power. He has no doubt he'll come across someone with superior strength, like All Might or even the Incredible Hulk. And that's not even including how strong Thor is. He has no doubt he'll cross paths with the Avengers, most likely on several occasions in the future. He doesn't see himself living his entire life in Japan. But for now, Japan is where he needs to be. He could easily give himself super strength while he's an overlord. Considering he controls that reality. He has full control of what goes, what happens, or how he enchant himself into whatever he needs. Giving himself superior strength while an overlord is a simple task. Even though Overlord is quite impressive and quite powerful and unique, it's never good to rely on a singular power or skill like how all the people in Japan depend on their quirks without branching out using other methods of battle. He sees it in several heroes in the field today. Their abilities are powerful in their own right, but take that away and they're nothing but pitiful children. Surprisingly, it didn't take Izuku long to get the formula down in form of a liquid vial. Once drinking, once the vial is drunk, it will change his physical makeup. As his body will be destroyed and rebuilt, turning him into a sort of a hybrid Nomu. The process will be quite painful once taken the formula, but once once the process is finished, he should be able to see remarkable improvements. So he did without hesitation and drank the vial in his laboratory. As he fell to, not even a second later, he fell to both of his knees in excruciating pain. He refused to scream. His pride and stubbornness would not allow it. So he pushed past the pain as his body is destroying itself and rebuilding itself at the same time. This was the most excruciating pain he ever been through. It lasted 48 hours. On the second day of the process, the pain finally receded, making Deku's body sore and weak from the excruciation from the excruciation process. When he finally recovered, that took 3 weeks, by the way. He immediately noticed changes immediately. He created the serum by using the DNA code from his own infused cork and mutant gene to create in the serum itself, giving his powers a little upgrade. Not much, but definitely noticeable to Izuku. Izuku immediately started running experiments with the newfound physical strength and with his powers to see if there's any changes and see what needs to be worked on in training. With more strength, with more strength and a improved body, he'll be able to use his abilities far more efficient, and his powers will last longer, considering his body has been upgraded to withstand his powers. Didn't take him long. He immediately started to get a handle of his new abilities and physical power, until he heard down the pipeline that the League of Villains are planning to attack the USJ. That's supposed to be happening in a few months, when the high school hero academy will take their class to the USJ for rescue training. What caught his attention is All Might is supposed to be teaching this year hero hopefuls from Class 1A, who his doppelganger managed to get into the same class that All Might is teaching. He immediately decided that he'd be the best opportunity for him to actually meet his doppelganger and foul the League of Villains' plans at the same time. Izuku and Izumi, with the rest of his class, finally arrived at the USJ. Everyone was going according to plan, until a black and purple warp gate appeared, revealing a small army of villains. Greetings, little heroes. I am Shigaraki, and we are the League of Villains. Where is the #1 hero? He was supposed to be here. No matter, he'll show up eventually. After all, he can't have his students. He can't have his students dying on him after all. Kirigiri, you know what to do. As you command, young master. Right, you NPCs. Kill them. Kill them all. Before anyone could initiate whatever they were trying to do, suddenly their surroundings beginning to morph as everyone found themselves in a green glowing city that clearly looks like it came straight out of a virtual reality video game, encased in a huge dome over them. Shigaraki couldn't help but be amazed by the new scenery around him. As a gamer, he could appreciate the battle arena. He is quite curious who is responsible for this. The only reason he's been staying his hand, not attacking any of the students that's found themselves in the same virtual city as him. As he ordered his grunts, or the NPCs, to halt their attack. This got a lot more interesting, and he wants to see how this plays out. A figure could be seen on top of one of the buildings of the virtual city, close to them so he could hear them if he spoke. Deku stared down at all of the new players with a smirk on his face. Welcome, new players, to Overlord, my personal playground. I am Deku. You might know me as the villain killer. You probably noticed the huge bell tower in the distance behind me. When both hands hit 12, the game is over, and if you haven't completed your objections by then, the bell tower will release a charge of energy that none of you will survive. Fear not, there will be a chance for you to survive. The rules are quite simple. I will be placing several enemies you need to eradicate. Allow me to show you as an example. As a holographic image figure of a skeleton materialized right next to Deku with a green sword in his hand, as a red one showed up on the other side with a red sword in hand. These are virtual skeletons. First of many different enemies you'll be going to have to take down. The green ones are worth 5 points, but the red ones are worth 10. I would advise you to go at the red ones as much as possible. Skeleton you manage to defeat will increase the time on the bell tower. Once you have accumulated enough points, the mini-boss will reveal itself to you, and if by some miracle you get past the mini-boss, you fight the final boss. Well, the final boss will reveal itself. As long as you're an overlord, I am God, so none of you will be allowed to use your abilities. But don't worry, I won't leave you defenseless. That will make this game far too boring. I have placed several different weapon caches around the city that has several different type of weapons like sword, laser weapon, any energy-based weapon, and so on. Now, let the game begin. The virtual city begins to shift and move to separate the students from the villains, as they found themselves in a different area of the virtual city, as Izuku, aka Deku, is sitting in a holographic chair on the top floor of one of the skyscrapers, watching the events of the Midoriyas, watching events on the monitors that are hovering in the air all around him. Izuku cracked his knuckles all at once by using his both hands to crack them. Basically, you know what I'm trying to say. As a virtual keyboard appeared right in front of him, as he begins to type, as he pressed enter, as the game has officially begun, as the clock tower begins to as the clock tower begins to start. What he didn't tell the players, that the more skeletons they destroy, the more difficult the skeletons will get during the entire death battle that they found themselves in. He's only became a villain killer because it's the best way to get his reputation to spread around. And mostly he's just going with the flow, so he's not going to stray off the course. He just doesn't want to copy Stain. So he has restained himself from killing heroes, but targeting villains. That's a wide open market. But his main goal is to test his doppelganger, to forcefully make him to get stronger, so they could have the ultimate bout, Midoriya, Izuku versus Izuku, to see who's the most powerful and the most skilled. He wants to see who would win the battle between the two of them. Not out of twisted jealousy, because he has a family and he does not. He's not that sort of monster. Killing him and replacing him was never even an option. Clearly, because he's much older than his doppelganger. by several years, so that wouldn't even work. Never work, and nor does he want his doppelganger's life. He wants to prepare the boy. If he continues down this path, he will cross path with All for One, and he wants to make sure the boy is fully prepared. After all, he is the newest wielder of One for All, supposedly the new symbol of peace in training, but he'll follow the course of action. If he follows this course of action, he'll definitely be the number one hero one day in the future. He might even be the symbol of the new. He might end up being the new symbol of peace. But that's far off from now. Unlike the rest of the heroes in this timeline, his doppelganger truly wants to protect people, not out of fame or fortune, just because it's the right thing to do. Deku does find his copy very naive, most definitely, but watching Izuku improve himself over the time since he met All Might and was gifted with a quirk timeline of himself with One for All, and watch his drive to improve himself, he couldn't help but admire that trait from the brat. But that doesn't mean he still believes he is strong. He's still weak, but everyone has to start somewhere. And he's only using the USJ attack as a staging ground for his first encounter with himself. Deku watched both players on both sides panic, unable to use their precious quirks. But his doppelganger and his sister are clearly more composed compared to the rest. Eventually, Eraserhead, Hero 13, I believe that's what her name is. The black hole hero, I'm not really sure. I think it's 13. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, say it in the comments. But I do believe it's 13. Anyways, let's continue. Riled up all the students and took control as they began to head towards one of the buildings, trying to find any of the weapon caches to protect themselves and to start going after the red and green skeletons, while the villains weren't having good luck. A large number of virtual skeletons found the villains. Majority of the cannon fodder was killed off, and the more experienced villains managed to rally behind Shigaraki. Shigaraki's plans might have been interrupted by the villain killer Deku, but he's extremely enjoying himself. He's actually in a real-life video game. He could kill All Might any time of the week, but actually taking part in an actual replication of a video game is something he doesn't want to pass up. Shigaraki did try to escape, but found out that the dome covering the entire city is very dense. In truth, there is no escape. Other people can venture into Overlord, but they can't escape once they enter it. That's how the rules of this reality works. Well, the rules of reality works differently in Overlord. It's under Deku's complete control. He wasn't joking or has some sort of misguided god complex while he's in his domain. He's literally, basically a god. He's told this to many people that have entered Overlord. Cut to the Midoriyas, brother and sister duo. They promised each other they would be heroes and form a brother and sister hero team. Class 1A finally found some weapon clash, a weapon. Cheers. You notice his sister's being oddly quiet. What's the matter, sis? Don't you find it odd that this hero killer Deku looks oddly familiar? Similar traits that clearly runs in our family, with the hair color and eye color. These are not common traits you find in other people, and the fact that he oddly resembles you, brother, I find something very suspicious about this Deku. I kind of felt the same way, sis. It's almost like I am looking into a mirror to a older version of myself. I don't think we have an older brother. I know that for a fact we don't. I don't know, but something's not adding up here. Let's just survive this, and we'll worry about other questions later on. Agreed, sister. Izuku handed over a green sword to his sister, and picked up one himself. And for one of the weapon caches, there wasn't a whole lot to choose from, but Izuku and his sister took kendo when they were younger, so wielding a sword isn't foreign to them. Everyone was split off in two teams. Naturally, Izumi stayed by her brother's side, refusing to be separated. They've always shared a close bond. Ever since growing up, she even knows about his quirk that he acquired from the #1 hero. Izuku knew better to keep it a secret from his sister. She would have figured it out eventually anyways. Keeping the secret from his mother is one thing, but he would never be able to keep it a secret from his sister. After all, they're twins. Izumi could tell immediately when Izuku's lying to her. Izumi, on the other hand, inherited both of her parents' quirks. She has a half telekinesis and half fire quirk. That's the reason why one of her eyes is red. The brother and sister finally moved out of the building and engaged their very first skeleton, a green skeleton. Izuku charged in first. When the skeleton tried to strike Izuku with his weapon, Izumi came in and blocked the attempt, while her brother came in and slashed the skeleton in half as it shattered into data shards, acquiring some points, adding more time on the timer. As the clock increased the time, the hand on the clock tower begins to rewind itself. Impressive. He's not too shabby with a blade. And they have solid teamwork. I wasn't expecting that. They never once trained with swords while I was watching him prepare for the entrance exam for UA. He must have had prior training. Their form is too perfect. Clearly they were taught a sword style. By the look of it, it looks like a fast pacing attack style. Agile, quick on your feet. And the sword style suits the both of them. Deku command a small group of red and green skeletons to target both of the Midoriyas to see how skilled they really are with a sword. Some of the other students didn't take it very seriously until they realized they could actually get hurt. Moneta found out the hard way. He was almost pierced through like a pincushion. If it wasn't for Sue, for saving his ass. He would have been dead. Overlord might look like a video game, but it's not. If you die, that's it, you're dead. There's no continue or getting an extra life. You die, you die. Overlord is not some sort of video game you can die and come back to. The rules of this world aren't any different compared to the real world. Death is still a constant. They can heal themselves by finding blue crystals that scattered all about the city, but he didn't tell them that, nor was he planning to. Izuku and Izumi notice they're being surrounded by red and green skeletons, all wielding various bladed weapons. As the two Midoriyas are back to back, and while in their sword stance, so none of the skeletons can sneak up upon behind them. You paid close attention to the Midoriyas now. Now things are about to get interesting. Let's see how you get out of this one, Midoriyas. That's where we're going to stop it. Hope you guys have a good night and day. Judge it by time zone, and I'll catch you in the next video.